Okay, so this is part 2 of our Tables4Act tutorial session here. Any questions from last week before we move on to this week's? Okay, all right, so today we're going to concentrate on the designing of layouts. It's going to be a little different. If anybody's already played with it, you already know this. It's going to be a little different than the Act layouts. It's not quite a drag and drop as it is in the Act layout, where you can just sort of like, you know, with the Act layout, you can almost just take your cursor and hit the up and down arrows left to right or up and down to move the field exactly where you want it to. With the custom tables layout, it's more of a grid. So if you ever worked with maybe Access or Top Line Designer as well prior to this, it's gonna be similar to that, where it's in more of a grid thing. So you need to be careful a little bit, because you can quickly get out of control with the layout, depending on how you drop things around. So, but the nice thing is that it's once you get the hang of it, it's relatively easy to place the fields where you want them to go. Okay.
I don't see your screen.
No? Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're the only one.
The screen.
We can see it.
You should see an X screen, Amanda. You don't see that?
Nope.
Weird. Everybody else can see it, right? It says I'm showing it.
Oh, I have a feeling I know why. It's sitting behind my remote sessions. That's why. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, so to design the layouts, we go up to our custom tables menu, select manage custom tables, pick the table that we want to do the layout for. So last week we worked on insurance, so we're going to do that layout. We created all these fields. So we select the table, and then we go down to design layouts. Now, one of the things that you need to be careful of here, and I've been, it took me a few times to get used to this, is when you create a table, okay, it actually, and then it goes back to this screen here, what it does is it defaults to alphabetic order. So you may have created a table, and you're not on that table when you're trying to design a layout. So just be aware of that. Make sure that when you look here, you're on the table that you want to design a layout for. Otherwise, you go to design a layout and your fields that you want really aren't there because you're looking at a different table, okay? So just be aware of that little gotcha. So to design a layout, it's in the lower left under additional customization, design layouts. And if you already had designed a layout for this table, they would be listed here, okay? So when you first start out, there's gonna be nothing listed there. So then what you're gonna do is create a layout on the left. And you're gonna get two windows that pop up. So one is basically like your layout designer. And then the second one is your properties, where the fields are that you choose from and drag and drop. So what I typically do is I just sort of separate these a little bit so that I have more space to work with. Just give me like a big area to work with here. Okay. So the layout's always going to start out with 4 fields. Okay. Or I should say 4 fields, depending on what you have it linked to. That's how many fields it's going to have there. So if you're only linking to contacts and companies, then I'll have those 2 fields there, contacts and companies. Because we linked this one to groups and opportunities, it's going to link it to those, or it's going to have those in here as well. And what I typically do myself is I always put these 4 things on a separate tab. And that's the nice thing with this layout now, is we can have tabs on here. Okay, if we remember back to the designer layouts we used to use, they really can tab. What they had was like a pull down. You hit an arrow and it would expand, and then keep expanding. Well, if you had a lot of fields, that could really tie up a lot of your screen there. So what we can do here is create tabs. And let me show you how we do that. And first here, I'm going to put these in 2 columns. And to do that, I just drag the field. I click on it. So I'm going to put opportunities next to groups. And you'll sort of see like a blue outline, okay? Just like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing with companies and contacts. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all 4 of these on the same tab. So to do that, I hold down my control button as I click on each of the fields. And as you see, you'll see each one get sort of outlined in blue. Okay, once I have all the fields I want from a tab, I'm going to right click, which which is going to bring up a submenu. I'm going to choose Create Tab Group. That's going to put a little tab there. And the tab, when you do that, just calls it item 0. So I'm going to rename that. And it's just a right click on the tab and then rename. Call it Record Details. Okay. Then I want to create another tab and put all the insurance information on. So I just right click just to the right of the tab. And then there's an option Add Tab. And then maybe I want that tab to be the first tab. So I'm going to just move this over. Oh, and see, there's one of the things, like I said, if you don't get it right where you want it, it gets a little out of control here. Let me hide this. Let me just, sometimes the best thing is just delete it and restart. Hide it. Okay. Hide item. There we go. Try to get rid of this here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now I have an insurance tab and a record details tab. And I can add as many tabs as I want up here. You don't have there's no limit as far as the number of tabs you can have there. So let's go back to insurance tab, which is blank. And now I'm going to put the fields on there that I want. And I just drag and drop them. And typically what I do, I found as best practice is to just get all the fields on there. And then after the fact, and then you can sort of place them where you want to. It just seems to work best instead of trying to get them exactly where you want them each time. Unless you have a lot of fields, and then you might do a group of 10 at a time and place them accordingly. And to do that, you just go over to your properties window, click the field, and then just drag it over, and then release your mouse, and it gets over there. And then you just do the same thing for the other fields. Now, what you could do, I just usually put them right underneath, because as you see here, the blue line goes, or the blue shaded area, depending on where you want it. So a lot of times I just try to go right underneath it, so it's just a straight line underneath there, and then just go one underneath each other. And I'll just do that for the remaining fields here. Then once I have all that, then it's going to be easy just for me to place the fields wherever I want them. Okay, so now we're just going to drag these into 2 columns. Okay, so now when I look at the insurance tab, these are the fields that will be there. The record details, that will have that there. If I wanted the field to be viewable up here, and so it doesn't matter what tab I'm on, I wanted the field to be viewable. Let's say maybe the, I don't know, the renewal date. I would just drag it up there. And maybe the waiting period. So then no matter what tabs I'm on, those 2 fields, because maybe those 2 fields are very important, I want to see them no matter what tab I'm on. Then I can do it like that. And as far as the size of the window, it doesn't matter what it looks like here as far as the size of the whole canvas window. To resize that, what you'll do is once you add an item, once we get out of the layout and go and add an item or a new custom table item when we're in the actual database, that's where you can resize it to your liking. And then it will retain that size moving forward, okay? So it doesn't matter what you resize it to here. So if I were to go like, if I were to resize this all the way up like this, it's not going to retain that, okay, when I actually add an item. But once I'm adding a new item and resize it, that's when it does the actual retaining of the size of this, okay? To change a label, you would highlight it. For example, let's change. I want to change number to just the number sign. So I right-click on it, rename, and then just put in what I want there. So we're not renaming the field. Similar to an ACT layout, we're not renaming the actual field itself. We're just renaming the label. That's all we're doing here. Nope, that was percent. You can also do it, or if you highlight it here, instead of a right-click rename, if you rather work with the properties field, you can also rename it over here in the properties window under the text. So you can always rename it there too as well. I find it easier to just do a right-click rename, but a lot of times people like to work in the actual properties section there, so you can do it there. One thing I neglected to do initially, but you need to have a name for it, is up here you need to name the layout. Typically, I just name it the name of the table, makes it easy. But you can, it doesn't need to be that name. You can name it whatever you want, but it does need to have a name. And as noted here, where it says, please include at least one linked field in the layout, such as contacts and companies. That's why when you first create the layout, it's automatically on there for you, so you don't forget. But sometimes people might delete those because they think they don't need them. So they want to make sure, you want to make sure that that's on there. It needs to have at least one link field. Somebody had a question, I'm not sure who had this question in the chat. Can these tabs and table fields be inserted into an ACT layout? Who asked that, just so I can get more clarification on that? Tony, was that your question?
That would be my question, yes, sir.
Okay, so what do you mean exactly by that?
Well, say for example that the expiration date was the only place I had it in ACT. If I also wanted to see that on the layout screen, just for quick reference, is that possible?
Well, once again, this is a custom table, so one person could have 10 expiration dates. So which one are you going to see?
Okay.
So that's, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Okay, so you see, yeah. So the answer really to that is no, because since this is a custom table, it's a one-to-many relationship. So the person could have 0 expiration dates, they could have 1, or they could have 100, theoretically. So there's really no way to say, okay, well, which one do you want on the top of the screen there to show?
Can any of these fields whatsoever be put in the layout?
Well, once again, it's a one-to-many relationship.
Okay.
So
okay.
You're not going to have, that's the reason for custom tables, is because it's one-to-many. There's no limit to the number of fields that you can have here.
No, that's fine. That makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so now what I did too, let's go ahead and hit OK here. Let's hit OK here. What I also do is once I create the layout, I create a duplicate layout as sort of a backup. So here I select, there's an option here, duplicate layout, and it's just called copy of that. So for some reason, somebody goes in there and modifies that layout, and they call us and say, oh, you know, I've changed this layout, I can't get it back to where I wanted it to. I have a copy of it right here. Okay, we can use this as a starting point then moving forward. Click OK, click close. And now let's go to somebody to add an insurance. I'm going to add some more columns here too as well. Okay, so to add a new item, we click the add button. And then now here's our layout that we see, that we just created. And once again, this is where we can do the resizing if we need to. And then we enter the data. So I'm just going to put some test data in here. forgot I had a dependent drop down there. Okay. Then once I add the data, it gets thrown down into the bottom section there. Okay. Now what I did was I also created a secondary table, a child table. Let me exit out of here and come back in. I created another table called claim, so that we can see the number of claims for each client, for each insurance policy. Then all I did was the same thing. I just created a table like we did last week. But what we'll do is we'll show you how to create that parent-child relationship now. Okay, there's a question here. Can the add button be added to a layout or toolbar? For example, you just click on the insurance tab and then new. Just click on the insurance tab. That's what you do now. You just click on the insurance tab and hit add. I mean, there's no new button. It's the same thing. It's add instead of new. Are you asking if you can rename the add button to new?
No, that
Tony,
add
is that your
button
question?
right there that you're clicking on, can that be added somewhere in the primary layout? I know you could have tables, but just using that.
Yeah. It probably could. I'm guessing that's some kind of custom programming out. Austin, are you on the call? See your name in the list, but I'm not sure if you're on the call or not. That would be an Austin question. I'm sure it probably can be.
Yep. I just came back.
Austin,
What's up?
Oh,
yep.
There's a question, actually two questions. One question was Tony was asking if we can show any of these fields in the ACT layout. I know we can't show a single field, but I think we could show actually like the table somewhere in the top section, right? We can embed it up there.
Yep. Yeah, the full grid can be shown. Yeah.
Is that done through custom tables or is that done through the ACT layout?
Through the ACT layout. So when you go into the ACT layout, there's a custom tab there. You right click and from there you can add a custom control. Yep. So one of them should be Tables4Act grid view, and you should be able to drag it in there.
All right, so Tony, for the first question, so I was a little mistaken there. We can't add a particular field, but we can add sort of like a view of that table. So under custom, oh, right here, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say I want to drag that like that. Then if I'm correct, you got to go to view properties, right?
Yep.
And then change the name of the table once you highlight it down here. Isn't that correct down here?
Yes.
The custom tab? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Save your layout. I forgot who I added there. Let me go to her record. Here we go.
You guys make sure you add a few columns there too.
Add the fields. Yep, I saw that. They didn't have the fields there. So same thing here is down below. You want to make sure you customize those columns. We'll just add them all for the time being. Did I not have the right? The fields are there.
Try refreshing it. Can you try refresh? No. Not sure. Should be working.
Okay, so I only goes down. Okay, so Tony, well, we're going to look into that one, but that is the way you would add. Okay, gotcha. See, but you're asking just for one field to show up on the top, huh?
Yes. So let's say you had, and I think here you have a maintenance, vehicles, insurance tabs. So if I wanted to create a new input for either one of those, could you have a vehicles, maintenance, or insurance button somewhere on the layout or the toolbar so I could just click
Well,
on that.
I was going back to your first question with regards
Okay.
to adding a field to the top of layout, so that's what we want to address first.
Yep, that
So
does.
your second,
Thank you.
okay. So your second question, Austin, the second question was this add button here, for example, for insurance. You know, let's say he's on the history tab and he wants to add new insurance one. Instead of going to insurance and hitting the add button, can we place a button somewhere on the layout or toolbar that says add new insurance item?
Currently not possible, but I think might be easy enough to add. So I'll have to do some research. But yeah, I can add to my list as a research item.
Thank you.
Okay. And we'll look into why this isn't refreshing here, because it should be showing the same data that you see on this tab here, obviously. So showing the field. So okay. So next thing I want to get into here is excuse me, getting into defining the parent-child table here between insurance and claims. So we go up to our custom tables menu, manage custom tables, and I'm on my claims here. Okay, so I go with the child table is where I want to be in when I want to manage the parent tables. So I'm on my child table. Over here on the left, there's an option, manage parent tables. So I click that option. And right now there's no parent table there. Okay. I'm going to add a parent link. So I select the parent table that I want. It's going to basically show me any of the tables that are available, aside from the claims table, because you can have a parent to itself. So the insurance table is going to be my parent table. Next, I want to select the link field. And what I did was I created a field. You have to have a field created in the child table that's at least 36 characters long and a character field, as it says here. So typically what I do is when in my child table, I'll create the name of the parent table. So in this case, insurance, and I'll just call it ID. You can also call it insurance link if you want, if you rather have it that way. But I just call it that, just so I can have that linkage between the two. And this is not a field you enter. It just needs to have this behind the scenes to establish that parent-child relationship. And then you just next all the way through there, and it creates that parent link, parent-child link, I should say. So now what I want to do on my insurance table, on my insurance layout, is add that claims ability so that I can add a claim right from an insurance item. So under my insurance table, I'm going to design the layout. Edit the layout. And now that I have a child table, there's a claims record now in my list here, which we didn't see before. So I'm going to create another tab here. Call it claims. Put it right there. And then I'm going to put the claims record, just drag that over here. And I don't really need the text over here because this tab explains what it is. So I can just hide this text. And I just do a right click, hide text to do that. Click OK. Then I want to make sure my layout's a duplicate again. So I'm just going to delete this one. And then duplicate this one again to basically copy my changes. Close out of here. Close out of here. Go to my insurance, and let's just go to the one I already have open here, or that I've created already. Double click on it to open it. And now go to my claims tab. Bigger. Once again, so anytime I see any of these grid layouts, I need to customize the columns before I can see anything here. Okay, then now I'm going to add a claim for this one. Claim number, adjuster. The claim was today. Total amount claim, $10,000.
So before you save, I believe you have to add the link field to the child table as well.
Link field to the child. What do you mean by that, Austin?
So go to design layouts for the child table
Okay.
and just add that link field to the layout. Otherwise, it'll add the record, but it won't link to the parent.
Because it looks like it's linked here, or no? Or am I
Oh, okay.
not seeing that here? Yeah. Right?
Yep, looks good. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't remember having to add that before when I've done this. So.
Okay.
But you definitely can. So let's do that, because sometimes you may create the claim and you may want to link it to an existing insurance item. So let's do that. So on the claims layout, we'll edit that layout. And where is it at here? It's just the link, right, Austin? The insurance ID?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's put that at the top here, at the bottom, I guess. Okay, come on, refresh. Okay, so now first, if I added a new claim, I can add a new claim like this. And then link it to the insurance by clicking the button here, the ellipse button, and then selecting my insurance policy from there. Similar to how we use our service and support internally. And so now when I go back to my insurance tab, I'm going to see 2 claims for that particular insurance policy. And same thing here, as anything, you can summarize it, add a total here. Why isn't that totaling for me, Austin? Shouldn't I have a, oh, there we go.
Just resize the window, yeah.
Yeah, there we go, okay. Okay. So that's how you get a sum at the bottom of anything that has any kind of, either currency or numbers, account of something. You hit the summarize button, and then you can right click in this bar. You can sum. You have a min, max, count, average. So to add 2 of them there, you already have one there. You add a new summary. Let's say I want to do the average, and then it gives me an average of those items as well. So this is like this is a really nice little reporting tool even sometimes for people. They want to see certain values and things of their items within their custom tables. Okay. All right. Any questions on what we covered so far with regards to the layouts? Adding the fields, adding the child table. Okay, so far so good. Okay, so let's go over some of the little items that are within the layouts themselves, some of the options within the right-click menus. Okay, so Austin, if you wouldn't mind, I want you to explain some of these, because some of them I'm not sure what they exactly do. So if you could just run down this list for us.
Yep. So best fit is if you are adding in multiple fields, and if, let's say, they're not quite the same size, if you manually move them around, but you want all of them to kind of take the same space, you just right-click best fit, and it should automatically resize them. So if there's 2 fields in a row, they'll automatically take 50%. And also, if you go to size constraints, you can click on, I believe, free sizing. Yep, and that'll let you move the field width around. So you can try that in one of the fields.
What are they by default, Austin?
By default,
Locked?
I believe they're locked, so you're not able to. Yeah, you're not able to directly resize them. But if you click on free sizing, then you should be able to resize them. Yep. So now, if you click
Gotcha.
best width, best fit, they all should get resized automatically.
Okay.
Yep.
Then if I do size constraints free, I can resize just a particular field by itself, or
yeah, it goes by the entire column, I believe. So if you have multiple columns, then it'll resize the whole column. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. Rename, obviously, we already talked about that. Hide text is going to hide the text of the label. Okay, so text position, that's pretty self-explanatory. It's going to tell you where it's going to put the text within, and that's the label itself, not the field, Austin, not the data in the field, or is it both?
Yep, the label. Yep.
Okay. Hide item will take the whole item away. Yep. So hide text takes the label away. Hide item takes the field away from the screen view. What does group do? Is that similar to the group tab? Awesome.
Oh, sorry, now it was bugging me.
Okay.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, so is group similar to group tab? It just doesn't create a tab?
Yeah, it'll just add a little label at the top. So you can select one and click group, or select multiple. And when you group, it'll put them in a group, put a label at the top there. Yep.
And you can change the label here with read. Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. So similar to a label, but I'm sorry, similar to a tab, but just sort of more of a grouping than a tab itself.
Yep.
Okay. Create tab group. We've already talked about that. Adding an item. So what's the difference between a separator and a splitter?
I don't believe those are really implemented fully yet. I might actually end up removing them, so don't worry about that right now.
Okay.
The label is, I believe, just a static text that you
want to add. I've seen that.
And for empty space, I believe if you wanted to have a field in a row take up a certain amount of space, you would add the field, but because by default it takes 100%. You would add an empty space there at the end, so then you're able to resize it. So make the empty space bigger, so the field takes less space. So that's how you would kind of resize the field.
Gotcha. So sort of like that over there. And then if you want to add one over here. Okay. So that's what empty space does if you want a field sort of smaller, but you don't have two fields within the same column. Okay.
Yep.
Then anything over here that's of value aside on the properties tab here?
I don't believe so.
Okay. The one thing I noticed or that I use a couple times down here is under text. If you want this to go further or not be as wide, what you want to do is change the text align mode to custom size, and then you can change the text size here. So if you want the width to be more, let's say you want it to be 150. So as you see here, the premium field went over farther to the right there. If I wanted it to be smaller, let's say 50, that might. So sometimes when you have a long field name, you have to do this so that the field doesn't hide the label. So if it was set at 50, you might have to go up to 75 or even further here. So usually it doesn't affect it too much if all your fields aren't too long, or if you don't have a lot of fields. But if you have a lot of fields in your table or in your layout, oftentimes, because what it'll do is it'll almost like best size it and shrink those fields a little bit. You might have to go in here and just change the width. Now you need to make sure that you change this text align mode to custom size, because if you don't, if you leave it on use parent options, even if you go down here to change the width keeps defaulting back to the default. So make sure you do that. First time I did that, I was running around in circles changing that back and forth. So use custom size, and then you can change the width and or height of that field. few, just gonna answer a few questions here. So we got look at the add item. Can we show a simple calculation, for example, an amount of $100 times 25%? Tony, I think that's from you again. Right now, the calculations are not in here. It would involve some scripting, so we're not going to go into scripting today. But there's going to be actually calculated fields built into 20.1. Is that correct, Austin?
Yep.
So next month, basically, pretty much about a month from now, there'll be calculated fields like there are within. It's going to be similar to the Act field, where you click a calculated, you choose the type as calculated, and then add 2 or 3 more fields into it. Is that correct?
Yep. Should be pretty much identical to the native Act.
Okay.
The way they act. Yep.
Perfect. Amanda, when would we want to use hide item? Basically, you'd want to use it. I mean, for lack of a better term, Austin, hide item is really just delete item, right? I mean, not really just hiding it. I mean, you're not deleting the field, you're just deleting it off the view.
Yep.
Yeah. So Amanda, the only reason you want to use delete item, or hide item, I should say, is if you put a field on there that you didn't want, like maybe create date or something, you put it on there, and the customer's like, you know what, we don't need to see create date on the layout, you can remove it. So it's really the same as delete item in the Act layout, but you're not deleting the actual field, you're just removing it off of the layout. So you're hiding it from view, even though the table stays within, the field stays within the table. Okay, I think that answered everybody's questions on that one. Trying to think. Austin, am I missing anything here with layouts? I think I've covered pretty much everything that we had in here. Like I said, the one part, everybody, is when you start doing this, I can guarantee you're gonna have some issues as you start dragging the fields in there. Just be patient with it, and have a steady hand. Once you start getting used to it, believe me, it's relatively easy. But the first time you do start using it, you will have fields that are sort of, they looked out of whack, so to speak. So it'll take just a little time to get adjusted, but once you do, it's very easy to get in there. So, and Austin, right here, as far as the default, can different users have different layouts, or is this the sort of a global thing here, which is set as the default within an organization or within a database?
It's global at the moment. We might do something where people can pick their own layouts, but at the moment it's just one at a time right now.
Okay, fair enough. So another thing I do as well is whenever I create something for a client, once I'm done for that particular day, session, whatever, whenever I've done something for them, I always export the schema. Okay, this does a couple things. Number one, it's basically like a backup of their structure. So in case they should go in and change something that maybe they shouldn't have, or they're trying to do something and they mess something up, we can always go back to this schema as a restore point instead of having to recreate things from scratch. So if you're just doing certain tables, you can uncheck certain things if you wanted to, if you just want to do 1 or 2 particular tables. But oftentimes it's just as easy to do the whole thing. This way, if they screw up any contact fields as well, you have that as a backup too. So you just leave everything checked, hit next. If you want to back up the layouts, that's usually a good thing too, so you can back all those up. And these are going to be your contact, company, group, opportunity layouts. You have the ability to export user accounts. Now, typically, that don't really need to do that for a backup, but that would be good if you ever need to transfer. Maybe you're creating a database on one machine and you need to transfer to another machine. That would be great in this situation. This is a nice option here, the drop down. So it will export the drop downs of any fields that are within your those selected tables. And then you just point it to wherever that schema you want to put it. So I'm just going to put it in my custom tables directory here. And you can, once again, call it whatever you need to call it. That's not a real thing. And they really don't take up that much space. So as we save this and hit next again, it takes literally no time to create it. And let's just go into that directory to show you the size of the file. So I mean, there's the size of that file. Wait, that's is that today? Why is the time different? Oh, 10:46. Let's say this on. Oh, this was Arizona time. Okay. Okay, so there's the size of the file, not very large at all. So it's very easy to email to somebody, put up on share file, download it there. Very easy to move around. Okay. And then if you were to need to bring that back in for whatever reason, you would just go to open up your custom tables or your managed custom tables, go to import schema, browse to wherever that file is, select that file, hit next, and then choose the table you need to import. So if you knew you only messed up one table, you knew you messed up the insurance table, you can uncheck the other ones just for sake of time. But if you weren't sure, you leave them all checked anyway. Go through next. It'll import all this stuff. Then it's just going to go through everything. The nice thing is if the field's already there, it just skips it. I'm not sure if you can read it real quick. Okay, so it's just saying that a field's already there, so we can't apply it. That's fine. Field created. There was an issue with the contact field for that toll-free extension. I ran into that earlier. And I believe I had to delete that field to bring it back in. So let me just, we're going to skip that one this time because I want to show you how the schema goes through. We're just going to skip importing any contact stuff and just do the custom tables. That's all we're really concerned about anyway. All right, so there we go. So basically, it creates any new fields that need to be created and or layouts, and we'll assign those accordingly. And then once it's done, it's done. So I think we talked about this a little bit last week, but this is a great way to create your customer's database on a different computer than theirs, so you don't have to take up their time. You can do all the modifications and creation of their tables on your database, and then create that schema, send it to them or upload it to them however you need to, do a web meeting with them, import the data, import the schema, I'm sorry, and then you're going to have that that new schema on their system. Austin, I know you stepped away. Are you back at all?
Yes, I am.
The question I had about that for schema, do they have to be on the same ACT version?
No, it's whatever version they're on, but they should be at least on the same Tables4Act version because we make some changes to the schema importer and exporter. So, yep.
Okay, so I can be on version 20, create this, and then the client can be on version 16 or higher. Doesn't matter what version they're on. They can be on 16 or 17,
right,
etc. Okay,
yep.
as long as the tables version is identical. Okay, that's really good to know because obviously we're all on version 20 ourselves here internally. So, but some of our customers are on older versions, so we don't have to install this on a version 16 server or anything. We just do it on our computer and then export and then import it on their side. All right.
Yep.
Okay, that's all I had for today. So this is if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop them up. I think I've answered everything from the chat window. But if you guys have any other questions, feel free to shout them out. Next week, what we're gonna show you how to do an import of the data into ACT. So now that we've done the structure, we've done the sort of the building of the foundation these last 2 weeks. Next week, we're going to concentrate on, now that we have that, how do we get the data into the database, whether it be from Excel or possibly from an ACT contact itself. Okay, no questions? Okay, if anybody does think of anything after this, feel free to email me or Slack me or call me, and we can get those answered for you. But thanks everybody for joining today, and have a great day.
Thanks very much.